There's a finite amount of time, and that if you're going to work on something, it should be something that really matters to you. And so at home, that is like, hey, if we're going to like commit to a sport, it should be something that really matters to us, because otherwise it takes a lot of time away from just like eating dinner together outside on the back deck or whatever. You don't need to have kids in order to care about things, but like I think it really helped shape how important that was for me.
Welcome to Startup Dad, the podcast where we dive deep into the lives of dads who are also leaders in the world of startups and business. I'm your host, Adam Fishman. Our kids are being thrust into a digital-first world, and in today's episode, my guest talked about how he's trying to bring that back to an analog one. I'm joined by Chet Kittleson, who is a serial founder, dad of 3, husband, and the co-founder of TinCan, an analog phone for kids that works over your existing internet service, but acts like the phone we all had as a kid. This was an amazing conversation. We talked about the ways in which we can claw back our sanity and focus on analog experiences, how to balance your time when you're incredibly passionate about the thing you're building, but also have 3 kids and a spouse, running your house like a business and with intentionality, advice to other founders who are thinking about becoming parents and parents becoming founders, and how much optimism he has for the future. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to Startup Dad on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. I hope you enjoy today's conversation with Chet Kittleson. Welcome, Chet Kittleson, to Startup Dad.
Oh man, thanks Adam. I'm so excited to be here.
Cool. I invited you on this pod because all of the parents in my various social media feeds, mostly Facebook families, groups, and things like that, are talking about your company, TinCan. I think, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, that the inspiration for TinCan came from your childhood, maybe a desire to raise your kids a little bit more intentionally, like an intentional analog way, given that we live in the most digital world on the planet. So can you tell me a little bit more about what TinCan is and the inspiration for your company?
Yeah. So first, let me just actually tell you listeners what TinCan is. So TinCan, we call it the landline reinvented for friends. The idea is to bring back a very simple voice-to-voice connection mechanism. We have 2 different products. We've got one called the Flashback. That's this fun retro throwback. It looks just like the phone you had when you were a kid. And then we have our own fully custom TinCan. That's kind of a fun form factor. But ultimately, feels a lot like a home phone that pairs to the parent companion app and just allows you to set up your kids so they can call specific people that you want them to be able to call, whether it's an external cell phone like grandma or your cell phone or 911, or another kid who has a TinCan for what we call a can-to-can call. TinCan, you sort of have to go all the way back to my childhood to really understand it. I certainly didn't know it then that I would start TinCan now, but there's a couple of things that I would share. One, I was an incredibly social being. So I was the landline kid is the way that I communicated. It was my first social network. When I was bored, my mom would say, go find a friend to play with. Fast forward to present day, my kids are now 10, 8, and 4. I have a daughter who's my oldest, and then I have 2 boys. And I have felt a lot of angst and guilt over how little autonomy they have over who they invest in, who they talk to, who they connect with. That's friends, but also grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins and all the rest. We're very much on the keep them away from a full tablet or full cell phone for as long as we can. There's a longer, very specific moment in time where the idea for TinCan came to me at my kid's school while I was talking to parents. But ultimately, that was where the idea for TinCan was born.
Yeah, and I see a lot of parents coming across it because their kids are getting to an age where they've read something like Free Range Parents. They're like, I want my kid to be able to go figure their own stuff out like I did when I was a kid, and like call up some friends and go to the park because they're, 10, like your daughter or something, which is, pretty good age for that. And then they're like, but, I don't want to get them an Apple Watch. We don't have a house phone, or I'm definitely not going to get them an iPhone or a cell phone. Like, because once you do that, you're like opening them up to this whole world of just like crazy town out there on the internet. It's like, giving them the keys to the car and being like, good luck, you're 10. So I'm very excited about the existence of this. Does it work over like VoIP, or is it like...
Yeah, VoIP Wi-Fi enabled phone device, yeah.
Cool. And then everyone gets like its own phone number?
Yeah, so we have 2 plans. One is we call the can-to-can plan, With that one, you just get right now a 5-digit extension, and that is how tin cans call each other. And that's totally free. There's no subscription. We sort of think about it as like it's like the walkie-talkie in the kids' room, but much more functional because you don't have to coordinate when they turn on and charge the batteries and all that stuff. It's always plugged into the wall. And then we have what we call the party line plan, which is $10 a month. It's $9.99 a month or $99 a year. And that comes with, when you go through onboarding, you can choose your own local number. So you search by area code, you find a number you like, we provision that number for you. And then for like a grandparent or a parent calling your tin can, they would just, I save my daughter Emma as Emma in my phone and I call her like I call anybody else.
Yeah, very cool. And before we started recording, I was saying, I think my kids are like a little old for it now. My daughter's about to be 13, my son's 10, same age as your daughter. And I was like, they have Apple Watches now, although that's the bane of my existence. And you were like, hold on, slow your roll. Like, they're not really too old for it. So what's sort of like the good age range for this product?
So we have plenty of kids as old as 15, and then we've got kids as young as 3. I think 3, 4, that's like a parental investment. I love it. I support it. I think the kid will be even more inclined to use it because they'll grow up seeing it. But I think, a kid probably won't start actually independently using it until like, if they're really social, maybe 5 or, 6. But I think the Apple Watch or the Gab or any of the other, like totally fine with those products, support them. It's a different intent. Those are typically focused on safety, tracking, communication with parents. They're not social devices. TinCan is very much focused on teaching your kid how to have a conversation with no distractions, allowing them to plan a play date.
I love that. I also feel like kids have lost a little bit of this art of conversation. Like I used to call my friends when I was a kid, and like inevitably their parents would answer the phone, and I have to like navigate that, chat with them for a little bit, and like, you're talking to adults and stuff like that. Nowadays, kids are just like grunting at each other over like a cell phone or something. So, or texting and just like not even engaging in one-on-one conversation.
Yeah. And communication is so important. Like as you grow, communication obviously becomes a very important part of whatever job you have for the most part. But also there was a study, basically they put kids in stressful situations. I think it was like they had to solve math problems in public or something like that, like vocally in front of people. And then they put them into 3 different groups. One group got to see their mom, one group got to text their mom, and one group got to call their mom. The 2 groups that got to actually communicate with their voice to their mom, their bodies released oxytocin. So the bonding chemical. So their heart rate slowed, they calmed down, they felt seen. The group that texted, there was no chemical effect. It's not connection. And so for us, it is a vital skill that we think kids need to learn, but also a thing that just makes them a healthier individual to feel connected to grandma or, whoever it might be.
That's so cool. So I'm curious what has worked for you when you think about balancing founder life and also trying to be there for your young kids who I'm sure have a ton of activities and needs and things that they want to do. So how's that work, balancing founder of hardware company with being a dad of 3?
I'm still working on that. I think the thing that is most important to me is to put my phone somewhere where it is inaccessible during what I will call family hours, which for me is generally 5 until bedtime, or 5:30 at the latest until bedtime. I have been very good at getting home at the right time between 5 and 5:15. And when I can put my phone in the bedroom, that helps a lot. I've tried lots of different devices. There's a thing called Brick. I actually really loved it. I don't know why I'm not using it, to be totally honest, because I thought it was great.
That's where you touch your phone to it and it like deactivates it basically. Right?
Yeah, you basically set it up to say, I don't want any of these apps to work other than X, or I want every app to work other than X. You sort of have the choice. And I loved it. I would actually brick my phone, and there's a physical device that you put on the fridge, or, it's a magnet. You brick your device, and then I would leave. And the cool thing about it is the only way to unbrick your device is to touch that same NFC, that same little magnet they give you. And so I had really no choice. There's like 5 emergency unbricks, but then after that, you can't do anything. If you delete the app, it'll open, but then you lose all your settings. So for me, it was pretty effective. Yeah, for me, when I put my phone away, that's the best thing, but it's hard. I mean, I've never been more addicted to a thing in my entire life. Yeah. I care so much. I feel like we're creating a better world, and we've had such an absurd response. In our first 9 months, I've never experienced anything like this. And every time I look at my phone, there's something really interesting. There's a really influential person that sent us a message talking about how much they love TinCan, or there's some new PR, whatever it is. And so I'm like, it's hard not to want to look at my phone. So yeah, it's a work in progress. I feel like I've got some, tools that I put in place, and I'm still definitely trying to figure it out.
Awesome. Well, maybe I can do a promo thing with you guys and give away one of these phones to people who support this podcast in some way. So
that'd be fun.
That would be very fun. It's the perfect target audience for you. So
yeah.
So you mentioned you're still working on it, right? When it comes to like the balance, where would you say that you've fallen down or failed?
I mean, I think pre-TinCan, I just wasn't a distracted dad. I have my own daddy issues. My dad left when I was 4, and I had no relationship with him. And so I think I have a very high bar. I had this vision of what a good dad was, and it's probably a completely impossible vision, but I've always strived for that vision. Building TinCan as a part of that vision. I wanted to build the perfect world for my kids. Yeah. And I think this is a part of that world. And I think TinCan, this adventure, it's much more likely that during family hours, I will be a distracted dad. The thing I feel guilty over is, on one hand, I'm convincing my kids of how important it is to live a connected analog life. And on the other hand, I've never had a harder time disconnecting.
This experience, or sort of like falling on your face a few times doing this, like, what's that taught you? Realizing that you're distracted dad and it's your company that's doing that to you, and that's okay, but like, has it changed how you talk to your kids about it? I mean, in a sense, it's a very positive thing that you're so into this and working really hard to bring it into the world. Do you have to talk to your kids about it in a certain way so that they understand why dad's distracted, or do they just yell when it's clear that you're off somewhere else in your head? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, well, the answer is definitely both. I do think in general, my wife and I do a pretty good job trying to treat our kids a little bit more adult than maybe, I think a lot of parents do it, but we're definitely in that camp. And so they know TinCan. They helped me install the first 100 devices. They've helped with fulfillment. They've boxed, they wanted to be a part of it. They were the first users of it. Their friends are beneficiaries of it. And so that helps. I can tell them, hey, I've got a customer in Atlanta and their kid is so excited. They're having a hard time. We don't have a large support team yet. Can I have 10 minutes to help them? I really want to. And they're like, oh yeah, well, I relate. I understand that kid must be really excited. And so it is nice that I could sort of bring them into the business and they relate in a different way. And there are times where they're like, Dad, where the heck are you? And I have to find a way to like snap myself out of it.
Yeah. But at least it's in your own head and not like staring at a phone, or maybe you're staring at a tin can, but I don't know.
Yeah, both. Yeah.
I want to ask you a little bit about your partner, your wife, Lindsay, who is a teacher and also a founder herself. She founded an art camp, or started an art camp, sounds like. So tell me a little bit about your life co-founder. And I put co-founder in air quotes because I think that's your terminology a little bit.
Yeah, I try to think about it that way. She's an art teacher. She started her own art camp. It's out of, we have a little art studio in our backyard. She's done 5 weeks of full summer camps this summer with 5 to 8 kids per week. She's a great partner. She's very focused on the family. And so she is a really good level set. And sometimes that's really hard, because when I'm feeling really addicted, it's like almost this, you're pulling me away. But subconsciously and consciously, I always know it's because I need to be pulled away. She's going to listen to this and love that. She's like, why don't you tell me that every time I'm pulling you away? But yeah, she has a very strong compass toward family, being together, being connected, being undistracted, going on trips together, getting, out in the wilderness. And it's very different for me. I've been in tech. I love career. I'm super ambitious. I'm super competitive. And so it is like a yin and yang, where I sort of push her one way and she pulls me the other. And sometimes that can be super painful and, definitely causes arguments. But mostly I think we both, when we take a step back and appreciate this is a very important part of our marriage and probably why this is working.
Yeah. How have the two of you had to be intentional about like getting into alignment on your parental decision making? You obviously approach this from maybe a few different directions. So
one of the things that we've talked a lot about and we've made some progress on, but I don't want to over celebrate this because it's a win that we haven't earned yet. I mentioned this idea of us being co-founders of the business that is the Kittleson House. And, I don't think our kids are our employees, but they're, certainly customers or something in that business. And when you think about the way, if any of you listening have ever run a business or been involved in a business, you are so absurdly intentional with looking back retroactively at what happened and what you can learn from it, adjusting to changing times, documenting what you want the next month or quarter or 6 months or year to look like. And we think about parenting, which is a business. You literally have a P&L, you have customers, you have a schedule, you have a partner, co-founder, et cetera. The world changes so dramatically so often, and you sort of just have this, we'll figure it out mentality. That's impossible. As a dad, I mean, I can say as a married couple, as parents, mom and dad in our case, my daughter changes. I never take a step back to say, hey, my daughter has changed. Am I parenting her the right way still? Have I made adjustments to her needs? Am I treating her more like an adult? Am I giving her more freedom, et cetera? I don't ever do that. And as parents, when we're thinking about our schedule, our kids are really into sports. We never take a step back and say, is this the year we want to focus on arts? And we're going to tell our kids we're going to take a year off from sports. We just do it. And then we're exhausted and, we end up bickering or fighting. And it's because we didn't adjust to the changing times. So my kids went on a trip, 2 of them to grandparents and 1 of them to a sleepaway camp. And we were at this restaurant on Alki in Seattle called Marination. I pulled up a document and we went through and talked about what the goals might be for, the next quarter and how we would make that happen. And one example of a decision is we need to have 2 weeknights per week free, which we did not have. I mean, 3 kids, we haven't had that in a long time. We don't have a social thing planned. There's no sport. And that might mean that we have to say, hey, I know you kind of like soccer, but you're not that into it. We're going to take the fall off of soccer because we have 3 kids and we just can't do 3 sports every single season. So anyway, we haven't earned a victory there, but we've started on it. I think we're both committed and excited about the idea of it. It's just, business forces you to do it. And with the household, you have to force yourself to do it.
Did your wife think it was funny or, unique when you pulled up a document and you're like, all right, we're talking about the quarterly. It's time for the OKRs for the household. Let's talk about the quarterly goals.
Yes, it wasn't. She was excited that I was working to create a system because I think she's much better at naturally having a system and I'm the one that's constantly blowing it up. And so I think she's very excited that I'm trying to find my own way. Yeah. And she understands this is the way my mind works. But yeah, I mean, she was like, wait, you're opening your note. What do you take notes on? Is this a document? Who do we submit it to? So yeah, she's an art. It's a very different, minds work differently.
When you were thinking about founding TinCan, and you talked about having a pile of electronics on your kitchen table or your dining room table and that your wife was supportive of it. How did the 2 of you talk about diving back into the startup world with 3 kids? Because I think before TinCan, were you at a bigger, maybe more stable company?
No. So that conversation started 2.5 years before TinCan when I left Redfin to start a real estate marketplace called Far Homes.
Yeah.
I was at Redfin for a long time. It was awesome. I loved that company. I loved the leaders. I loved the CEO, Glenn. He's still a good friend. I talked to him yesterday. It was a great job. I was paid well. I had a great work-life balance. I sort of knew my way around. There was nothing wrong. I was always given opportunities to grow. So I was really stimulated mentally. And I just had this insatiable itch that's been there forever. And, this idea came up that I thought was novel and I thought I might be a good fit for. And so it was a hard conversation, I think, for both of us. I think on Lindsay's end, I'm not going to tell her this podcast aired, but on Lindsay's end, I think on one hand, she knows who I am and she wants to be supportive and she wants to let me be who I am. And I know that. And on the other end, she knows that I have a tendency to want to do everything. And part of her job is, unfortunately, sometimes I think probably to wrangle me and to be like, hey, we the family can't take this thing right now. And so I think this fell into that weird middle area where it's I get that this is an itch. I do believe it, but also we have 3 young kids. What if you waited for a few more years to scrap? They're going to be in high school before we know it, and they're not going to want us to hang out with them. And so it was definitely a long conversation. And there was a lot of compromise on both ends where I had to, really commit to certain things. And it's ended up working out. I think TinCan has been harder. It's better in that we both care about what I'm doing a lot more. That's actually a weird way to put it, but like it's more personal to our lifestyle with our kids. There's a natural connection point there in a way that the last business didn't have. But I'm also because of that way more addicted to it, and it's just working like it's much more successful in its early days, and so that creates like I could work all the time. There's always something to do. So yeah, it was hard.
Yeah. So you mentioned like kind of running the house like a business ish, having quarterly goals, being intentional about your household and having rules like, 2 nights a week off and things like that. But what are some of the other systems that the two of you have had to put together to make all this work? I guess, especially as you got into TinCan and realized like, oh, there's really something here. Like there's a pull from the market for this thing. Like, what else have you had to do?
I mean, we're 10 months into this journey. It's the September was us building prototypes. Really, November was when we actually were like, I think we have a business. Let's charge and see if people will pay for it and all the rest. And so I think that's still very much in flight. Me putting my phone away, being home consistently at between 5 and 5:30, so I can be there to help with dinner or to make dinner, and then to be there to eat dinner with the family and do bedtimes and all the rest. We use a paper calendar. That's the holy grail for us. We talked about different digital calendars. There's a bunch of them, but I think for Lindsay and now for me, there's something really beautiful about the analog simplicity of it's just a piece of paper. Everyone can see it right there. It doesn't have a battery. It doesn't glitch. And she would love to hear me celebrate that because there was a lot of resistance over the paper calendar for a long time, but I have come to love it. And so, yeah, I mean, I think right now it is just sort of this like contract of like, there's family time and we're going to prioritize that. And then we organize our lives on a calendar and we make sure that we don't overbook and we have time to be bored and, all that.
I wanted to ask you about one more framework because this kind of falls into the frameworks category. But one of the things you told me about as we were getting ready for this show was, and other dads, especially dads with 3+ kids, have talked about the idea of one-on-one days with your kids. I have a couple of questions. Like, one, what are your one-on-one days? Like, what do you do on those? And then, I also want to know how you pull it off because it's just more stuff that is time consuming. I mean, it's good, but it's still time consuming. So.
Yeah, I view one-on-one days as crucial and we don't do them near enough. Every time we do them, either one of us, whether it's me with one of my kids or my wife with one of our kids, there's this sort of immediate, like that was powerful. Like it was way different. I was really connected. I was focused. The conversation was shockingly, they're 8, 10, and almost 5 now. So like getting to the point where they're like, I can have an adult conversation with my daughter. She can ask me really insightful questions. Yeah, all that. It kind of feels like a New Year's resolution to me where like there's a certain moment each year where I'm like, all right, I got to prioritize this. And I have 2 or 3 months where I do one with each of them. And then it kind of falls off because sports start and we get busy and there's just no time. And so I think I would say 2 things. When I am unable to prioritize them, I would still prioritize one-on-one time, even if the whole family's there. So I'd be like, hey, Thatcher, my son loves baseball. Both of them do. But I'll be like, let's go outside and play catch. Sam, I'm going to play catch with Thatcher for a half hour, just the 2 of us. We do that all the time. Baseball is a huge part of our relationship. And playing catch specifically, it's just like the most therapeutic back and forth. He's good now. So it's like we can actually play catch. And then I have that, I'll play soccer with my daughter, or she loves doing art. So we'll, do some art together, which I'm horrible at. And so I think like at the very least, don't let great be the enemy to good and just be like, hey, let's go get a half hour outside. Yeah, the family's here, but like this is just the 2 of us shooting hoops or whatever.
I'm sure that, you're in a founder community up there in the Seattle area. We know some of the same people. When you talk to other founders or maybe even younger founders who are thinking about becoming a parent or they're parents and they're thinking about starting a company, like what do you tell them about your experience having done this a few times and then also worked at, a bigger, more stable company?
It depends on the day and how that day is going. I am a huge fan of building from scratch. It is the most addicting, fun for the right personality type. It's a horrible experience for some people that, like needing direction is not a bad thing. Some people are like amazing operators. They need a little bit of, they're not the one that wants to also like take care of payroll and legal and compliance and everything else. And so, if someone wants to do it, I'm pretty encouraging. I mean, if I'm being honest though, I'm an encourager. One of my best friends back when we were we weren't married yet. This is back in like 2010 or 11. He like had on a whim, wanted to get a dog, and he came to me. I was like, I want to get a dog. What do you think? And I was like, dude, let's go get a dog. And we jumped in the car and he went and got a dog. And then our other friend, who was like always much more pragmatic, was like, why did you ask Chet about the dog? You knew he was going to support getting the dog. And so in general, I'm just excited and I like encouraging. And I'm like, I don't know, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, you'll figure it out. And usually that's true. He loved his dog. If he can go back, would he have not gotten him? I don't know. Jury's still out. Yeah, in general, I would encourage people. I'd say, dude, you live one life. Like, find balance, figure out how to do both. And I'm still figuring that out. But like, I don't know. I just don't think you regret many things that are a little bit adventurous or outside the norm.
Yeah. Your previous companies were all pure software companies. And now you're actually building something like with your hands. And now you're not building them anymore, but you were for a long, long time. So like, what's it been like going through this transition from like, you can't vibe code a phone. So what's that been like for you?
I mean, I think I said this a little bit earlier, but amazing. Maybe it's novelty. Like, I'm sure if I'd worked in hardware for the last 15 years and all of a sudden I was doing software, I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's so fast. And, the stakes are high in hardware. The decision, you've got to make decisions 3 months ahead of time, oftentimes. And once you make a decision, like once the steel is cut, you can't take it away. You have to rebuild a new tool that can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. And so, I think software has done a really nice job making me pretty open to risk and pretty aggressive, which I think honestly makes me a slightly better hardware founder, because I just don't take every decision quite as seriously. But I've made sure to put people around me that, let me know when a decision needs to be a little bit more thought through. But yeah, I just love the tactile nature of it. I love that there's devices. There's like actually things that kids touch and feel and love. And I get to choose like what the texture is like and the colors and how thick the buttons are and what the resistance to those buttons is. It's like my favorite movie. One of my favorite movie types is cooking movies, like 100-Foot Journey and Chef. Like, they're so beautiful because like they do such a good job. You like smell the food, you feel the passion of the cook. And this feels much closer to that to me than software. You can't not feel the passion when you like get your first prototype and you pull it out of the box and you feel it. And I don't know, it'd be hard for me to go back.
That's very cool. Yeah, I can feel the enthusiasm. Okay, so minor aside, but you're into cooking movies. What's your take on The Bear? Have you watched The Bear?
I have not. I don't watch much, to be told. I mean, I watch movies, but like in terms of shows, is it amazing? Do I need to watch it?
You can skip season 3. Definitely watch 1 and 2, and the jury's still out on 4. I'm only part of the way through. So, but season 1 was great. Okay, I want to ask you about maybe how you've changed as a parent through having 3 kids. I hear this a lot from folks that are like, well, I've learned a lot and now I have a 3rd kid. And so I'm just curious, what have you noticed about yourself that's changed in the last like 10 years? And what would you attribute to like having kids? Like, what have the kids kind of driven for you and that change?
If you look really closely, it's mostly the slightly peppering hair.
I know the feeling.
There's a couple down here too.
Yeah.
I mean, from a business perspective, I think the most obvious thing would be a ruthless prioritizer. There's just this almost freedom that comes with being so busy because it's so much easier to know what to say no to because you just literally can't do it. As a very social person, I remember one of my anxieties before we had kids, when I was married to Lindsay and when I was single, was the world is so large and there's so much to do. And every day for me was sort of this, like, how do I choose? So it was a very real, almost an anxiety. And Lindsay actually helped with that too, because she's sort of the opposite of that. She's like, the world's right in front of us. Like, let's do this thing. Let's do this puzzle or, whatever. It's not that hard. And having kids, one of the freedoms that I found was the shackle of having a kid. It was like, well, I have to come home and feed the kid and then do their bedtime. And it's already 8:30. And so like, maybe I'll watch a show and then we'll go to bed. And that was like very freeing for me. And then as they've grown and as I've had more kids and now I've got a little farm running, I have to be a ruthless prioritizer. That absolutely correlates into my work when I think about how to make decisions and how to move quickly. And then like the chaos, this could go either way. I could totally see the case where like I have chaos at home. So I need stability at work. But I'm sort of like, I don't know, I'm already juggling 6 things. What's one more? And it feels like it's just a part of my ethos right now. So yeah, I think those are both good examples of, ways parenting has changed me. In terms of how, I guess the last thing I would add there, and this is just super relevant to TinCan, is recognizing that there's a finite amount of time, and that if you're going to work on something, it should be something that really matters to you. And so at home, that is like, hey, if we're going to like commit to a sport, it should be something that really matters to us, because otherwise it takes a lot of time away from just like eating dinner together outside on the back deck or whatever. And at work, and by the way, no shade on people working on stuff that just feels like a great commercial opportunity or whatever, but this has been a uniquely cool experience to work on something that my friends understand, that they like get, that they have in their house, that they feel like matters. And I don't think that that would have been a priority quite the same way. You don't need to have kids in order to care about things, but like I think it really helped shape how important that was for me.
Do you employ a lot of parents at TinCan?
We have a 7-person team. We're pretty small. I think we're pretty close to half and half. One of my co-founders has kids the same age as me. The other one has no kids. We've got an ops leader that has kids. We've got a customer support person that has no kids. We've got an engineer that has kids. And I actually feel pretty detached from whether or not they have kids. There are certainly benefits of being like, oh, I have the product in my house and my kids can touch and feel it. But you also become very subjective to like your experience. And not having kids, you can be much more objective and look at the data. It's very hard for me sometimes. Like, well, I have 3 kids and all their friends always ask me for features. Like, we should do those things. But that might be an edge case. And so I've actually had people we've interviewed say, hey, I don't have kids. Like, how do you feel? And I'm like, great. You can be way more objective than I can. Like, look at the data, talk to kids, talk to parents, figure it out. And so I don't view that as like a requirement at all. It's definitely fun though to have people in the office that also experience it at home. Like I think having both is important.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so I wanted to go all the way back to something that you very lightly touched on, which was when you started TinCan, you went around probably with your co-founders, and you installed all the earliest prototypes yourself in houses around Western Seattle, and you brought your kids with you. So tell me about that. Like, what was that like?
Oh man. I mean, that is similar to how I feel about choosing the twirly cord and the resistance. And you sort of like, you have these random moments in your life, professionally and personally, where you're doing something that someday a podcaster will ask you about. And that was one of those moments where I'm like, Adam Fishman someday is going to be like, hey, tell me about this time where you drove around West Seattle delivering tin cans. And so you sort of knew if TinCan is special, which I didn't know yet, this is going to be a moment that I look back on as like my battle scars and like this special time. And so, yeah, it just felt special. And the response I got from parents, I remember one mom started crying when the phone rang. Like I would set them up and then I would whitelist my number so that I could call, and then I would call their number. And I think there was something, the trim line, like the old landline ringer, I'm sure they spent a ton of time getting it right. And it's like warm. And it's a reminder of simpler times. And, we live in a world that sometimes feels anxiety inducing and chaotic. And I think there was just some visceral emotional reaction like, oh my gosh, I needed this. And so, yeah, I mean, I learned a ton about what parents wanted, what they didn't want, what they cared about. And then like maybe the most insightful thing is I was pretty convinced this was for the parents and the kids to sort of be a beneficiary. Kids lost their minds. I have so many videos of those first, 50, 100 houses. I always wanted the kids to be home. Sometimes they couldn't, but usually they were. I'd be like, hey, I'd love to come when the kid's there and I can, see their reaction. And I would walk in and they'd be like screaming and jumping up and down. And then they would hear the ring. And usually after the first 3 or 5 houses, it was always a friend. And so I would be able to be like, hey, I just made it where you can call your friend Mara or whoever. They would call her and they would just freeze up and be like, oh my gosh, it's a portal, and they've never experienced this technology before.
That's amazing.
And so it was really special. I mean, sometimes I feel like I should just like once a month pick up family and be like, hey, I'm going to deliver yours in person and help you set it up, because it was such a cool experience.
That'd be pretty fun. That'd be like the when I was at Lyft, John and Logan used to do Lyft rides on New Year's Eve. They would drive around and pick up people, and most of the time people had no idea who they were, which is pretty awesome. So awesome. Okay, so you are increasingly trying to foster, you mentioned an analog experience in a world that really drags us into the digital space at a really young age, actually, from like iPads at 3 or 4 or whatever. How do you talk to your kids, you and your wife, talk to your kids in your household about their relationship to technology?
I mean, my response here would be, I mean, ultimately the word I was going to say is balanced. We're not Luddites. I'm not like, you can't ever watch a show. We don't have a TV. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that is not us. We have a TV in the living room above the fireplace. We watch movies every Friday night. The kids can watch shows, cartoons in the morning. And so they have a relationship with technology. I think, my opinion is it's important for you to figure out how to have a relationship with technology. It is going to be a part of your life and probably your job at some point. But the important thing is being aware of your relationship with that technology and having a balance and not being controlled by it. And so for us, that is like, I'd say we're like relatively rigid on the rules. Like they used to do this and we took it away because it was too far, but they don't watch shows on weekdays. So it's like a weekend morning thing. Part of it is great. My wife and I get to sleep in a little bit more and they get their breakfast and watch shows. That's great. Parents need that. And the kids, it's like special. And I'm like, awesome. I did cartoons as a kid. I'm here. But weekdays we don't. And they'll still ask sometimes. And it's just like a firm, no, we don't do shows on the weekdays. I don't even know why. It just feels like it's like, that's a great example of, I want you to experience that there are times where you need to figure out something to do without technology. And there are times we can use it. We've been going back and forth lately on like trips. Historically, we were like rules aside, you get 3 movies on the way to Spokane to visit my wife's parents. And our last few trips, we've either done none or 1 movie. And I think TinCan is infusing more curiosity in me as to what it would be like if we were a little bit, even more screen free. And those trips have gone great. Some of that might be our kids' age. They're a little bit older and a little easier for us to communicate with. But we're trying to tell them, like, it's important for you to understand that sometimes you're just going to sit in a car seat and stare out the window. And you don't need to be entertained the whole freaking time. And, I think most parents would say that if you're firm and consistent, usually you'll be surprised by how okay they are. And by the way, there were like centuries of people that did this. They didn't have a screen to entertain them. They had to figure something out. They went and like threw a rock outside.
Right.
And so we're trying to bring some of that back. I think we've always been balanced. We've never been they don't own any devices. They don't own their own tablet. But I think I'd say we probably peeled back another 25 or 30% since they started TinCan.
Yeah, and I think kids, maybe when something gets taken away from them, they typically protest, early, and then they get over it really quickly and they figure out something else to do, because, sometimes they have the attention span of a goldfish and they just move on like the rest of us. So
yeah, it is harder though. I always want to acknowledge that for parents because the screen helps.
It sure does. Yeah.
And so I always feel I want to be careful about anyone feeling judged because I don't know anyone's situation. And it takes a lot of effort. Like my son, Sam, came with me to work one day because my wife was doing her art camp and I was on Sam duty for the week while working. And so he came to the office and I was committed to no screen. I had to prepare and my wife helped me because she's way more artistic, a ton of art projects and things for him to do.
This is your 5-year-old, right?
My 5-year-old. Yeah. He crushed it. I posted on LinkedIn a while back a video because I was on a call and he was like, in my periphery and he was doing something. He had his lunch and I was like, there's like a plate on the ground. And I think I see like the top of his Tupperware thing on the ground, but I'm on this call. I can't remember what it was. I think it was important enough where I was like, I kind of can't be distracted. And I finished the call and I look up and he's standing there. And my kids really love baseball. Like that is their thing. He had built himself a baseball diamond. So he was like, boom, strike 1, boom, strike 2, boom, home run. And he like bat flips and runs. And like the plate was first base and his lunchbox was second base. And I mean, that's like a perfect example of I had given him an iPad for the day. He would have not used his imagination.
Yep.
And, but again, it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've done over 100 episodes of this podcast. And one thing that I hear is just huge diversity of what works for everybody. And so I don't take what you're saying as any sort of judgment on any parent that might do things differently, but it's interesting what you've observed there with the creativity that it fosters. Like boredom definitely fosters creativity for sure. Okay. So there's this thing called AI. You may have heard of it, kind of a big deal these days. What is the most creative and interesting use of AI that you've found as a parent?
So this is one I have to share because I think it's hilarious. You, Adam, gave me this question and said, hey, I'm probably going to ask you something like this. And I just plugged it into ChatGPT and said, hey, how do I use you as a parent? And its response was dead on, because I think the only ways I use it as a parent are for storytelling. I actually even feel a little torn on this, because I'm like, I should be like making up a story, but it's hard. Usually it's when we're camping. We go camping. Typically we try to go 4 or 5 times a summer, or on a trip. Like we went to Hawaii earlier this year. I did it there too. But usually the prompt will be, hey, we're on a trip in the Olympic Peninsula, camping for 3 nights. Can you give me a 3-night story that has 3 unique parts? I want each of them to be like 10 minutes for me to read. And it needs to incorporate my kids and our dog Zoe. And I'll go back and forth with it for like 10 minutes, usually like premeditated before the trip. And then on the trip, it'll be a story about my kids, and their dog talks, and they have to go on this big quest together. And usually I have it be like a team building where like they have to work together and they each have a special power. And so that's been probably the most, like maybe the only, but like most compelling use case. And then I've tried to have it give me like illustrations of the story, and that it's had I haven't figured that out. I'm just using ChatGPT. I'm sure it's a better tool for it. But yeah, beyond that, I've not done much as a parent with it.
I love that you asked ChatGPT, and because it's got this memory, it's like, well, let me just look back at all the things that you've ever asked me. Here we go.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, that's awesome. Way to go, ChatGPT. Okay, so I wanted to end the main part of our conversation on a slightly optimistic note, because I love to end this way. And I think it's really easy as a parent, especially, to have a kind of pessimistic view of our future, because you read books like Anxious Generation, which I'm sure you've read, right? You're building an analog phone for kids. Like, I'm sure you're familiar with the works of Jonathan Haidt.
Yeah, I got to meet him a month or 2 ago. He's been a good supporter so far of us.
That's awesome. Well, if you see him again, tell him he needs to come on this show. I'm trying.
Oh, there you go. I probably can't help there.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
He's a little busy these days. So, if you read that stuff, and there's a good message there, but if you read it, it's pretty easy to be like, ooh, this is doom and gloom. Like, this is terrible. Our kids are struggling. And you're trying to change that. And so I'm curious where you find areas to be optimistic in your daily life, in work, or in interactions with kids.
I don't know if my response is directly a response to your question, but I think it is very important that we have people do a great job highlighting the problem to create awareness for all of us, me included, of things that we might want to optimize or improve. And it is very important to have another faction of people turning those problems into solutions. And I would say that our goal with TinCan is absolutely that. I read that book. It was a big part of the inspiration. I had the idea before, but it really helped solidify, like, I think this is a really special moment in time where TinCan is like, it needs to exist in the world. And so I view us, the problem promoters and the solvers, as a very important key partnership. And yeah, ways to be optimistic. I mean, man, starting this company, I've had the good fortune of connecting with so many people that are working on the same problem in such fun ways. I think retro is in the zeitgeist right now. And you've got people like this woman named Emma Nuckman that wrote a book. I can't remember. I think it's called ABC's The Millennial Way. It's so fun. You should read it. I bought it and my kids loved it. I'll give you one spoiler page. B is for Blockbuster. And the whole thing is like this story about, like, we used to actually go to a store and pick a movie and fight over which one. There's like a woman named Mary working on this thing called Tween Magazine. She's trying to bring the magazine back for, in her case, specifically young women, tweens, 8 to 12-year-olds, and giving them content that's all about empowerment. And so, the cigarette was really cool at one point in time. And we didn't really know how bad it was for us. And then people talked about how bad it was for us. And people stopped smoking cigarettes. Like, the percentage went down. Cell phones and social media, super important. It's not a perfect correlation, because they are very important. I will continue to use my cell phone. I have an iPhone. I'm proud of that, blah, blah, blah. But like, we didn't realize how addicting this stuff was. And people let us know. And now we're going to work on solutions to make it better. And we now have a generation of parents that have been through it. And they are actively trying to figure out solutions. And I'm one of those parents that have built something. I think that's like a great reason to be optimistic.
Well, I'm so appreciative that you're doing what you're doing. I think you've inspired me to go get myself a TinCan now. Maybe one for the neighbors too. We'll see.
Heck yeah. Bundle discount. Buy 2, get $5 off each device.
Oh, snap.
Buy 3 or more, $10 off each device.
Wow. Okay. Well, maybe we'll negotiate some bulk purchases here.
There you go.
Okay, last question for you before our lightning round. How can people support you in building TinCan, and how can they help you along your journey?
Great question. I would say two things. One, buy or promote TinCan, share about us, whether you have kids or not. People need to hear about it. And then two, and this is a little bit different, and this actually wasn't premeditated, but I think about it all the time. If you get a tin can for your kid, you've got to invest in changing the paradigm of the way your household operates so that tin can becomes a utility or whatever house phone you choose. It takes time. It's a novelty at first, and kids lose their mind. In general, our usage is very strong we have cohorts as old as 10 months now. And I want parents, like, that we're so ingrained in having this information asymmetry, and like the parent has everything and the kid has nothing. And so like we can text and organize a play date for you. We can check on this, we can check on that. And the areas where TinCan has worked the best are where parents have invested and said, like, if you're bored, go pick up the TinCan. They've worked hard to get their neighborhoods involved. They've worked hard to get their schools involved. We have a lot of schools who are working directly now. And that's sort of early days there. But like, it's an investment. I'm trying to build a movement, and we're trying to create a cultural shift back to a simple voice communication, at least for kids to start. And that takes a village. Like, we're not going to do that by ourselves.
Oh, I love that. I love the angle of, I mean, as a growth and product person, I love the angle of getting schools involved too. It's just such a communication vehicle out to the parents, and they can definitely spread the word, especially when they're trying to get kids to not bring cell phones to school, not bring watches and things like that. Anything that helps parents delay maybe some of that stuff.
Yeah, we had an email from a school. We've talked to this school a couple of times, but we had an email this morning where they said, okay, we met as a group and we want to buy a tin can for all 200 students in the population.
Whoa.
And then do a bunch of cool integrations where we'll make it where, like, hypothetically, this is what they asked for, like, can the entire third grade class be automatically connected to each other? Right now, can connections are via a friend request system. And so, we're going to talk more to them, but we're really excited to work with schools. And we've had a lot of people, we haven't done anything with this, but we've had a lot of people ask us about doing like a TinCan payphone. Not that you would actually insert a quarter, but imagine in schools or at parks or libraries, you can actually walk in and there's like a TinCan where you can dial some sort of code that matches your account and call your mom and say, hey, I made it to the pool, or I made it to the library, or whatever. So yeah, we're excited about stuff. Who knows if that's ever or years from now, but fun dreams.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, we'd show up at a friend's house and we would ask them if they could call back to our parents, or can I call to let them know where I am? So,
well, and you talk about the watch of like, I want to make sure that they got to school, and you're like, what if they could get to school and be like, all right, I made it to school. So anyway, we'll see, but lots of fun stuff.
Okay, love that. All right, let's go to lightning round. Always a fan favorite. What is the most indispensable parenting product besides the tin can that you've ever purchased?
Paper calendar.
Yeah. Okay. Love that.
You could have guessed that one.
Could have guessed it. You were
wife gets the credit, but that would be it.
Way to go, Lindsay. What is the most useless parenting product you've ever purchased?
I mean, every toy that we've ever purchased maybe is the right answer.
That counts.
The number of like remote controlled things that they use 4 times and the battery dies, and then we lose the charger, and then it goes to Goodwill.
Right. We have not standardized the battery chargers yet. We need to.
Yes.
Okay. What is the weirdest thing that you've ever found in your kids' pockets or in the washing machine?
I mean, this one I sort of feel like the answer is the junk drawer. Like there are times where you open the washer and you're like, there's a battery, there's like an LED light, there's 3 coins, and there's like a stuffed animal.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think at this point we've evolved and we're pretty good at emptying pockets.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, money, we've found everything in the washer and dryer over the last 10 years.
Love that. Okay. True or false? There's only one correct way to load the dishwasher.
Absolutely true. I am known by my friends and family as the dishwasher.
Okay.
I had a lot of jobs dishwashing growing up. I think there's also a right and wrong way to wash a dish. Some people like use gross rags to wash their dishes. There's a right way to wash a dish, but there's also, you need to put plates in a certain place and cups in a certain place, and everything needs to be facing down. And I've got a strong point of view on how to load the dishwasher.
Okay. So you do it in your household then, I imagine.
I would say, and I mean, if I'm being totally honest, my wife carries a majority of the mental load by a wide order. I have to say that. Dishes are probably the one thing that that I can consistently lay claim to as like, hey, I always contribute with dishes. I need to do better. But yes, dishes are like, that's a massive contribution of
It
mine.
is a unique talent for sure. Now, are you a rinse before you load, or are you
like clean, basically?
So the dishwasher just is a sanitizing agent.
I view it as a sanitizing agent. I just cleaned the filter for my dishwasher 2 days ago. It had been too long. But if you haven't cleaned your filter, do it. I don't know if you know you're supposed to, but like that thing can have like 3 inches of orange gunk on it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What is your signature dad superpower?
I think this one for me is my insatiable appetite for adventure. The flip side of this, by the way, is I'm not very good at staying still, which is very important for kids too. Like sometimes they just want to sit on the couch with you and do like imaginary play, which is not my specialty.
Mm-hmm.
But like bike rides, any sport, going and getting ice cream, going out to eat, walking along Alki Beach in West Seattle, which is a nice beach boardwalk. You know, I can exhaust my wife and my kids. I will always be willing to go.
Okay. What is the crazier block of time in your house? 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. or 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.?
Definitely the evening. We have a pretty chill morning house. Like the kids will make themselves breakfast. It's very relaxed. They feed the pets. That's one of their chores. Evening, if there's one time of day where my kids decide to get along, it's right before bedtime. And it's both adorable and the worst because they'll go crazy. Like, well, it's bedtime. We're so glad you're getting along now. But like, come on, it's 8:30.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say nighttime after dinner, they'll usually go nuts.
Okay. If your kids had to describe you in one word, what would it be?
I think I would say goofy.
All right. No further questions about that one, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the most frustrating thing that's ever happened to you as a dad?
This one has to be the request for anything the moment I'm walking out of a kid's room after the performance that is bedtime.
Yes.
They're like literally 3/4 of the way sleeping. And I like slowly sneak out, Dad? Yeah. Can I have some water? I'm like, ugh!
Yes. I love that.
Or there's like a weird question where they're like, hey, what is the moon made of?
What happens when you die? Oh, God.
Yeah, exactly. Usually it's way more obscure and dumb.
Yeah.
That's actually a deep, it's like, what's the angle of a light switch? I'm like, what? I don't know if a light switch has an angle.
Okay. What is your go-to dad wardrobe?
I mean, what I'm wearing right now is pretty close, but it's jeans, usually green or gray, a short sleeve button up, and Brooks running shoes, and then oftentimes a hat.
Okay.
I have 2 flannel long sleeves that I wear as well.
Okay. We got a long sleeve flannel. You dressed up for us today.
I did.
Put on your big boy clothes.
I didn't button it though.
Yeah. How many parenting books do you have in your house?
I think we probably have 3.
Okay. How many of those have you read cover to cover?
0.
All right. Good.
I think cover to cover, I would say how many of those have you opened one cover and the answer might be 0. But man, we're good at buying them.
Okay. How many dad jokes do you tell on average in a given day?
I would say like my dad joke game is really bad.
Ooh.
I'm like goofy and my kids love that I make weird faces and noises, but I cannot retain a good dad joke.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one that I always remember is I don't even remember it. Yeah, I'm bad at dad jokes.
Okay. Let me see if I've got one.
Oh wait, how does the moon cut his hair? Is that it?
I don't know.
Eclipse it.
Oh my God.
There you go.
Okay. Why did the quiz show give away $10,000 plus 1 banana?
Why?
They wanted the prize to have appeal.
Okay.
All right. Let's keep going before people delete this podcast. What is the most absurd thing that one of your kids has ever asked you to buy for them?
I have so many answers, but I have to go with my niece. My niece is older now. She's 16. Maybe she just turned 17. And every year she sends to the whole family like a document, and it's her Christmas wish list. And it's getting more realistic, but I'm not kidding you. There would be like a 32-inch TV, like no joke on it. There'd be a Jeep. She'd have like a bunch of jewelry that was like legit, expensive jewelry. Yeah. And we were all like, did you want like a gift card that could contribute toward one of these gifts for $25?
You should send her a 32-inch TV box, and inside is a TinCan phone when she opens it up.
I love that idea. Yeah. She's gotten, now it's like a pair of shoes.
Yes.
It's a little better.
She brought it down to earth a little bit.
Yes.
Okay, love that. What is your favorite kids movie?
This one's really hard for me. I am a massive, like, well before kids, I've always been obsessed with animated movies. I love Pixar. I wanted to work there for, like, I have no talent to give them, but like, I always loved the idea of working at Pixar. So I probably have to go with Toy Story. I know that's so classic, but like, that just changed my life. I kind of am annoyed they're making another one. I'm excited, but I'm also like, what? Yeah. Why? So for animated, I go Toy Story. For live action, I'd probably do Sandlot or Mighty Ducks.
Also great films.
Yes. I'm a sucker for a good sports movie.
Okay, what nostalgic movie can you not wait to force your kids to watch? Or maybe you've already forced them?
Yeah, we have. And I would say, I mean, we've got a lot, but like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Freaky Friday. By the way, Freakier Friday, freaking amazing.
Oh, I had a friend who just invited me and my kids to go to that.
Yeah. I loved it. I'm so happy for Lindsay Lohan. I think being a kid actor is the worst. And I like anytime they go down a road, I just feel so sad. And she's making a comeback, and she's awesome. Like she crushed it in that movie. I loved it. I thought it was such a good homage to the original.
Okay.
Parent Trap. Like we've watched all the sports movies. Little Big League, Rookie of the Year. The Green Mile, or not the Green Mile. No, The Green Mile. Yeah, The Green Mile. Yeah, all those movies.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know if you have a good answer to this because we're literally soldering phone parts on your table.
Whoa, but my co-founder is the one that would do that.
He would soldering.
He would laugh if I said I am actually not. Okay. Yeah, that is not me.
Okay. But, what's the worst experience then that you've ever had assembling a kid's toy or a piece of furniture?
So I do love building stuff.
Okay.
Not electronics, and so I think my answer for this. Assembling new stuff is like a hobby. It feels like Legos. Like I love a good IKEA project or Target. Their stuff is very similar at this point.
Yeah.
For me, my wife is very good at sourcing used furniture that looks, it's like awesome stuff. Fixing used furniture is super frustrating. My son's dresser right now, I don't know if it's an armoire or what you'd call it, but it has 2 drawers at the bottom, and the top drawer always drops to the bottom drawer, and there's a wood plank that's supposed to go across, and every time I try to fix it I make it worse because all the wood is so brittle, and so it's just I've just accepted that this is the way life is now, and he has a drawer that sinks into the other drawer.
It's all right, just put some more stuff in that bottom drawer, it'll prop it up. How often do you tell your kids back in my day stories?
I think the answer to this before TinCan was not very much, and post TinCan is all the time. And I get emails and Instagram messages I don't have Instagram personally, but for TinCan from other companies working on really cool, like the Emma Nuckman book I talked about.
Yeah.
And so like now I'm constantly being reminded of the old Game Boy, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So pretty often.
Okay. Well, we're in the home stretch here on Lightning Round. 2 questions left for you. 1, what is your favorite dad hack for road trips or flights?
It just has to be snacks.
Yeah.
Like have snacks, give them all the snacks, make it sugary. There's a balance there for sure. But like, we're trying to be like less and less screen. I think if you have snacks for like every 30-minute increment, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. Okay. And last question, what's your take on minivans?
We have one. I think it's a 2022 Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid.
Ooh.
And it's not our dream car. We were pretty resistant, but with 3 kids, it does feel like it's the only choice. We really wanted a plug-in hybrid or an electric car. And like once you have one, I mean, come on, like they're so absurdly functional, they're really comfortable. And so I think the moment that it didn't make so much sense, we will get rid of it for like a standard truck. Like I would probably get a pickup truck and maybe an SUV. But for now, the minivan all the way.
Okay. All right. Team Minivan. Chet, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. This was really fun. I'm amazed at the product and company you're building, and I hope everyone runs out and buys one after this. And thanks for talking about your family too and some of the things you've learned. Best of luck to you, the fam, and the company.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with Chet Kittleson. You can subscribe and watch the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit www.startupdadpod.com to learn more and browse past episodes. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.